Are we ready to go? Awesome. My name is Michael Siglain. I'm the creative director of publishing over at Lucasfilm. The family must be in the audience. Welcome to our Lucasfilm publishing panel. We have an awesome all-star roster of talent that can barely fit on the stage. I will introduce them one at a time. We'll go through some fun stuff that we've got coming up from a galaxy far, far away, and hope you guys enjoy it. So to introduce the panelists, first we have Christian Blauvelt.
Hello, everyone. It's always like we say every year, like, we need a bigger table. You know?
We really do. We really do. Next up is Jody Houser.
Hello.
Followed by Justina Ireland.
Hello.
Mur Lafferty.
Hello.
Michael Moreci.
Hello.
Greg Pack.
Hello, hello.
Amy Ratcliffe. Charles Soule. Robbie Thompson. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Chuck Wendig. So we're going to go through, we'll ask everyone a bunch of questions, but the way I wanted to start it was to ask each of the panelists, what do you guys love about Star Wars? What is it that excites you, that motivates you about this great franchise? Christian, you want to start?
I think it's partly just that there's so many different kinds of stories that you can tell within the Star Wars universe. I mean, we even had like Gothic horror and the Screaming Citadel comics last year, and there's just so many different kinds of stories to tell, so many different kinds of characters. It's just this vast canvas that it feels endless. You can explore it forever, and I've just always loved that ever since I was a little kid.
I think for me, it's the idea that no matter who you are or where you come from, you can make a difference and make the universe, the galaxy, a better place. Or a worse place, if you're so inclined.
I'm just here for Poe Dameron and his sexy, sexy windblown hair.
To me, Star Wars has always meant adventures. And I know there have been a lot of other adventures that have come out in a lot of other media, but nothing feels like pure adventure than Star Wars, and that's a lot of fun to add to.
Yeah, I mean, similar for me, like going off Mirror, I mean, like, I love space adventures, and I think that, like, there's something to be said about the Star Wars blend of the adventure and something more profound with the Force and the way heroism is displayed, and collective unity and things like that. So it just has this great blend that I've never encountered before, and it's just stayed with me my entire life.
I grew up with the original series, and just I was 11 when the first one came out. No, I was 9 when the first. How old was I? I'm old. And they're just kind of stamped in my, in my consciousness. I mean, I think there are 3 things. One is just that it was like mind-blowing. I mean, imagine yourself as a kid in 1977 and seeing this stuff on screen for the first time. You'd never seen anything like this. I mean, you'd seen awesome Ray Harryhausen stuff, but you'd never seen anything like Star Wars. It was mind-blowing, and it continues to be. Just like the spectacle of it all is just amazing. And then as I've been writing, I've been just delighted by how much goofy humor is in every one of these movies, and just that embrace of fun, while at the same time grappling with this epic story that is asking really serious questions while it's in this action-adventure genre about the morality of violence, and what and the cost of that to the human soul, like.
Way to bring it down, Greg. Jeez.
Oh yeah. So think about that next time you're celebrating someone getting their head cut off with a lightsaber, my friends.
I don't even know what to say after that. Everything they said, but hope is Star Wars distilled in a word to me, and continually looking at whether you're a farm boy from nowhere, a trained Jedi, somebody who was a Jedi and left the Jedi Order, or a pilot, like literally anyone can make the choice to stand up and fight and look forward to a brighter future, and that always gets me right here.
So I love the love. about Star Wars. By which I mean, when I was little, you know, my brothers and my sister and my dad, and to an extent my mom, we all loved this thing together. And as I've grown with Star Wars, I found so many more people who love Star Wars, like everyone in this room and everyone on this panel. And it's just this shared thing that we can all adore and mull over endlessly and talk about with our friends. And it's a wonderful thing, and the morality of violence.
When I was a kid, the movie hadn't come out yet, and my brother and I got action figures from our mom, and I hadn't seen the film yet. We hadn't seen the film yet, and so my brother got what appeared to be a golden man, and I got what appeared to be a trash can. And so for me, what Star Wars is ultimately about is how, ultimately, and this is what all the stories are about, I don't care what anyone on this table tells you, or anyone in any of you guys either, is ultimately the story about how a scrappy trash can can save the universe. So for me, it's about R2-D2. I love you, R2.
You know, Ewoks, like, really is, just put a period on the end of that sentence. I was told if I wrote 10 of these, I would get one. And for me, there's a generational component to Star Wars I really adore. I think there's been a kind of a Star Wars trilogy now for almost every generation after mine, including mine. And my own son, 7 years old, is kind of finding his own Star Wars trilogy and his own sort of generational component. And I feel like the new trilogy even kind of talks about that and even deals with sort of how Star Wars passes along from generation to generation and the costs of that and the joy of that. And so I like seeing it on screen, and I like seeing it in all of us.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Jody, going to you, you've adapted Rogue One into a comic, and you've adapted Thrawn into a comic. What was it like adapting two different mediums into another different medium?
Well, I'd done some adaptation stuff before. Thrawn was a really interesting case because I'd adapted books, but more like young adult books, so not nearly as dense. And Thrawn is so great, but he's such a literary character because he will go into great detail explaining how he's smarter than you and why his plan worked and yours didn't. And so trying to make that work in a comic so it's not just, you know, people standing around talking about how great Thrawn is, although honestly I would read that book too. You know, and just making sure it took advantage of the comics medium as much as possible. But like I started reading the first Zahn trilogy like back in like 1994, I think. So honestly, just getting to play with this character who I've been a fan of for the vast majority of my life was amazing.
That's awesome. And now you're also working on our Age of Republic titles for Marvel. You can see an image there from the great Giuseppe Camuncoli, who drew what will show you guys what we're doing with this series. You know, we are taking readers on a journey throughout the saga, starting with Episode 1 and starting with the prequel trilogy. And Jody, these are the characters that you'll be writing. You've got 4 heroes, 4 villains. What was it like to dive into the prequels? Was there a character that surprised you? Was there one that you were intimidated by?
Well, I mean, honestly, one of the really fun things for me was I did a count, and I'd written over 300 pages of Star Wars comics that had basically nothing to do with the Force. And so then the first characters I wrote for this were Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, and I'm like, crazy Force stuff, yeah. So just sort of getting to play with that area of the sandbox was a lot of fun. But honestly, the most recent one I wrote was the Count Dooku script, and he's just such a fascinating character to me, just the fact that, you know, he left the Jedi Order and everyone was kind of chill with that. And then he's like working for this, you know, rising separatist movement, and everyone's still kind of chill with it. They're like, well, he used to be a Jedi, he's fine. And just the idea of how he sort of fits into like the decline of the Jedi and how much they underestimate him and, you know, what he's become. And also just when I write, I can usually hear the actor voices, so I just got to spend a few days hearing Christopher Lee talk in my head, which was super cool.
And these launch in December. Again, it's 4 heroes, 4 villains. I know you have to run to a signing very soon. Where can people find you at the show? What else are you working on that you want to tell the crowd before you have to jet off to your next gig?
Well, I also, the first non-adaptation Star Wars book I did was the Poe Dameron Annual, thanks Charles, and that should be out, I guess, in the next trade, I think. And I also am doing like Doctor Who and Stranger Things and some other stuff people have heard of. I'm in Artist Alley at J15. I'm not sure I'll be back there today, but I'll definitely be there quite a bit tomorrow and Sunday.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. While we're on the subject of our age ofs, let's move over to Mr. Greg Pak for the Age of Rebellion. Greg, you've got the honor or the fear, you would say, of writing probably the most iconic characters from the Star Wars saga. What is that like? What was your approach? Did it frighten you? Did it scare you? Did it intimidate you? Make you giddy? What was it like?
It was awesome. I mean, I've been working in comics for a long time, and every time I work on a, I'm constantly working on classic characters. Like I've written the Hulk, I've written Superman, and every time if I think about it too much, I'll freak myself out. You know what I mean? Because you're working on these characters that are iconic and that giants created and breathed life into. But then, you have to. I think about this too. We talk a lot about what's the word for insecure writers when we the
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. We talk about imposter syndrome. Who am I to be writing this? I suggest taking the opposite approach. I suggest, as a writer, say, I am the perfect person to write this story because of the experiences I've had and the stories that are in my head, and I've got a story to tell. And so I've tried to be really cocky. I'm channeling Han Solo here, if you can't tell, and just embrace it and seize this incredible opportunity to play with these characters that I've loved since I was 9 years old. Okay, well, Lando I've loved since I was like 11, right? Because that came out a few years ago. No, actually, even longer. Well, anyway. But yeah, the thing that I've really loved about it is that as I've watched and rewatched these movies now, I'm picking up on things that I didn't even notice for the first time, or I just took for granted. And just all these little character bits. Like the most recent thing was like, I love the way Harrison Ford looks frickin' terrified every time he's doing something big, some big action sequence. He's running down the hallway. He's freaking out. He's not like the stalwart hero with the, set jaw he's not John Wick, you know what I mean? He's Han Solo, and Han Solo has no idea what he's doing, And as a kid, I wasn't thinking about that, but I was feeling it. And as a writer now, it's such a gift to have those kinds of little details that these brilliant actors brought to these characters and these filmmakers brought out. So it's a total pleasure every single day when I sit down to work on these. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, thank you. We're happy to have you. Happy to have all of you here. With these stories, and this goes for you as well, Jody. With the age of stories, how do you guys make them feel both big and very personal at the same time?
I mean, I think, it's almost really helpful to have each one sort of it's a standalone story that's just, you're really focusing in depth on one character and trying to get to the heart of who they are and, in the case of a character, say like Anakin, like why they become what they become. And I think just sort of taking that deep dive, but also just setting it in like a moment in their life that, on the surface might not seem like the biggest thing, but just really keys in to their identity and what fans love about them and why they have become such iconic characters. It is an interesting balancing act, though, for sure.
Yeah, it's also a challenge because, a lot of Star Wars stories have been written over the years. Yeah. And so finding a little niche in the mythos where you can set a story with an iconic character that tells something new but also embodies that character it's a huge challenge. But once you find that, it's such a great little little itch you can scratch. It's been a blast.
And then can you tease out anything about the Leia and Vader issues that you've got coming up, Greg? Because
so
we happen to have those covers right here.
All right, there we go. Very nice. I think is that the Terry Dodson Leia?
Yes, it is.
There we go, gorgeous stuff. Yeah, you can find Terry Dodson in Artist Alley, by the way. He's awesome. The Leia issue is, can I say anything about the story or should I hold off on that?
You can say a little bit, yeah.
All right, okay.
That's enough. No, I'm kidding. You can actually say a little bit about it.
I think my editor, Mark Panicia, who's right there, give him a big hand right there in the audience. You wave, Mark. Oh, he's shy. I think he had thrown out the idea of kind of looking at that moment before Leia, spoiler alert, saves Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. Because she goes in there in the bounty hunter's outfit, right? So how does she get in that outfit? What's that story? And that was covered a bit in the Forces of Destiny short, the animated short that was released a while back. But there's a great little story to be told there about, because she not only had to get that outfit, she had to, sell herself as this bounty hunter, and so it's like this, as Han Solo put it, this high and mighty princess has to, convince Jabba the Hutt, and Jabba the Hutt's, bodyguards that she's an actual bounty hunter. There's a cool story to be told there about, that shows, the steel in Princess Leia as she claims that identity and makes it her own. So Chewie and Lando are going to play supporting roles in this story, and also Bossk. I don't know how many Star Wars fans. Yeah, of course. Yeah, okay. I'm in the right room.
Everyone knows Bossk.
Okay, good. At one point we were like, maybe we should use Boba Fett. And I was like, let's not use Boba Fett. Let's use Bossk for this one. And Bossk is perfect for it. So, you're going to see a different planet. You're going to see a cool adventure, and you're going to see Princess Leia become the, Boushh the bounty hunter. She's going to kick some ass. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome.
And it's about the morality of violence. Actually, it's not this one.
And then after the Age of Rebellion, we do have the Age of Resistance. Tom Taylor could not be here. He's in Australia at the moment. But you will see that, we've got some pretty big things in store coming from Marvel, starting in December of this year, and then going all the way through next year. Mur, I wanted to talk to you next because you adapted Solo. Yeah, go ahead. Everyone give a round of applause to Jody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jody. Mur, you had the challenge of adapting a film that you hadn't seen.
Right.
What was that like?
It was terrifying. It was, I got to read the script and figure out as much as I possibly could. I was lucky is a funny word here. Some of the added scenes had not been approved yet by the time my deadline came, and so they extended my deadline past the film coming out, Memorial Day. So it was like, I could go see the film, and I had the weekend to finish what I could. The book was done, but I had the film to fine-tune a lot of stuff. So for example, what I had written as Rio's death was a bit bloodier than what was in the movie, so I got to cut that down a little bit, and I'd had trouble. There was a lot in the train sequence that I had trouble picturing when I was reading the script, and I was so happy to be able to see that before I turned the book in. So I wrote most of it without the benefit of the movie, but then I got to see the movie. And then, of course, the downside to that was the edit turnaround was really tight, so that was not so good. But the fact that I had the time to see the movie was awesome.
And can you talk a little bit about the scenes that you were able to add into the novel?
Yeah, I wanted to take, the movie starts with Han Solo running away from a deal that had gone bad, and I thought, okay, what deal was that? So I took it, the prologue being about 15 minutes before the movie starts, to see that deal go bad as he did the exciting thing of not knowing what he was doing at all and really trying to get one over on these guys who are trying to buy the coaxium and it failing miserably. And I added a bit in the middle, but one thing that was fun is I also had the middle grade book that was also complete. And so I had the movie script and the middle grade book, and I'm like, the problem here is, how am I going to tell this scene differently from these other two ways that have been told already? And what I came up with a lot was telling the scene from a different point of view of somebody else. So, for example, the scene when Dryden Voss is about to kill them for losing the coaxium, I tell that whole scene from Kira's point of view, as she's seeing Han for the first time and watching Dryden freak out. But one thing that was my favorite part to add was L3 merging with the Falcon from her point of view.
Oh, cool.
Because that was, I love that character possibly more than at least any other droid, but she's like in my top 10 of all-time Star Wars characters, and I really wanted to give her a little bit more what happened to her and why she made the decision to merge with the Falcon. So that was my thing. And then I did a Hail Mary and thought, why not just ask for all the toys in the world and get to say where the coaxium went afterwards? And they said yes. Which blew my mind. So I got to write where Enfys Nest goes after the end of the movie, and where she takes the coaxium and who she delivers it to.
You can say.
Oh, and yeah, she delivers it to. Don't tell. He just said.
No, she can say. This is something we can actually say.
Go buy the book and read the book. You're terrible. Thank you, Justina.
Thank you, Justina.
Justina understands marketing.
Yes. Robbie, you also had,
Hello.
You also had a similar challenge because you're also adapting.
I had a little bit more of an
comics.
advantage because I had access to that manuscript and also or a summary of it and a summary of also the middle grade book or whichever it was, which was great. I think the challenging part of this job was actually, well, two things. Number one, I was really glad that Mark emailed me and didn't call me, so he didn't have to hear me cry. Like, as I said, yes, can I please pitch on this job? That was great. But the other thing was, Mark was like, you got to go to Lucasfilm and read the script. And I'm a huge fucking nerd, and I was like, I don't want to know any spoilers. So there was this like week-long dread of like, 'cause we had to coordinate with like the Disney folks and to get into it, because like they're right near where my wife and I live, and I was like, and I couldn't tell anybody about it, like, because it's super top secret, but like I just wanted to call my mom and ask her like what she thought, but like that was the only real struggle. But I had a lot more access to the material, and it was really, really great, in particular reading the script, because I don't remember which draft of the script I read, but it was whatever it was on the digital, it literally lights on fire after you look at it, document that they gave me. But it was really great to read the script, and I got even more excited about the movie because, the Kasdans. I mean, obviously Lawrence Kasdan is a legend in this room, obviously, but he's one of the great screenwriters of all time. And to see what he and Jonathan did on the page, they just really understood the character in a way, kind of like you were talking about, that there is a level of fear, and that was really inspiring for me, going into it, and being able to have all the different assets and be able to kind of play around with it. And also, you guys are great at modulating, like what Han is and what is not. And the character I keep coming back to is one of my all-time favorite, hopefully this is a favorite of other people, is Big Trouble in Little China. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot about, because like Han isn't Han yet in this movie, the Han that we know, anyways. And in particular, on the other minis that we're doing, I think a lot about Jack Burton because he's an idiot. He's so stupid. Like I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but there's actually an amazing YouTube clip of just him asking questions, and he's so freaked out in the movie. He's like, "What is that? What's happening?" And that kind of energy comes across in the script and in the novelization as well, and in the sort of middle grade book as well. So it was a lot of fun. But again, the hardest part was spoilers, man. I was really sitting there crying about Rio in an office in Burbank. It's very embarrassing.
You're also writing, you mentioned it just now, the Han Solo Imperial Cadet miniseries from Marvel. Can you tell the crowd what to expect from that one?
It's about the morality of violence. I think, was it Mark? Did you? Where's Mark? I can't. I think originally when we talked about it, you were like, what if Full Metal Jacket met Stripes?
That's how we pitched it internally.
Was that you? Okay, all right.
We pitched it internally as this is Star Wars meets Full Metal Jacket meets Stripes.
Yeah. And I was like, again, I had to lay back down. Like, what's the Michael Cera Arrested Development lay back down on the ground and cry gif? Like, that was me, basically, because I just thought that was so insane. And then, having read the script, it was very clear that there was a window that was, some of which was shot and is on the Blu-ray that's out now, or the digital, whatever the hell you kids watch now. There was just a great opportunity to tell some more story, and kind of, I think we talked about it as kind of like almost like a year one. It's not going to be all of his adventures in as a cadet. Hopefully we'll get to tell more stories, but it's been a blast, and we're having a good time. Leonard Kirk is drawing it. He's an absolute brilliant artist, and I get to work with that character. And is Tom here? I've never met Tom. Right there. Oh, he's right there. Oh, hi. We've never met. Hi, nice to meet you. I get to work with those guys and you guys, and there's a shocking lack of R2-D2 in it, but other than that, I'm having a blast.
Awesome. Well, we're going to segue from Han Solo to the Millennium Falcon to talk to Justina and to Michael, because you guys are both writing stories for our Flight of the Falcon Kids Initiative. And what this is tracing the flight of the Falcon basically from the time before Solo, before the event in Solo, through the saga, just post Episode 8, landing on a planet called Batuu, which you'll hear a lot more about around this time next year. Justina, for you, for Lando's Luck, what did you want to bring to middle grade fiction with this novel?
So when I was a kid, Lando Calrissian was like the only black dude in the entire galaxy. So I was like, I feel like that deserves like a proper homage. And Lando has always been like my favorite character because he's a goddamn delight, right? Like he will steal your wallet and then make you feel okay about the fact that he stole your wallet. And so like I really wanted to bring that like that charm and that kind of like that's, you know, how suave he is to a middle grade audience in a way that was also very approachable. Because obviously he is not going to have any kind of illicit adventures for the 8 to 12-year-old set, because that's not family friendly. And so one of the things I did want to do is kind of show him in a situation where he's comfortable and also very uncomfortable. So a lot of that is the way he plays off of the younger characters in the book. And of course you have L3, who is just being salty as hell because that's the kind of droid she is. And so yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and I think it's like Annie Wu's illustrations are amazing, so it really gives another like bit of life. I don't think you have any pictures. You looked over there. I was looking for pictures too. But if you pick up the book, you'll see it's like they're very kinetic, and they really like give another depth to the language on the page.
And you were also able to add some new characters.
I did, yeah. So we get to meet new space princesses. And somebody actually, I was talking about, like, it's out, you can, and somebody on Twitter was like, how is Leia in this book? And I'm like, it's a big galaxy. There's more than one space princess. So you get to meet some new characters because it is a big galaxy, and there's a lot of planets that we haven't talked about. So you get to see some new places. You get to see some new facets of the underworld. So it was a lot of fun. It's a completely new adventure with a very familiar Star Wars feel.
Awesome. And Michael, you're writing the sort of wraparound larger story, which is the actual hunt for the Falcon. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's been a blast. So my story is there's like 5 or 6 parts. There's like 5 in the issues and like a big wrap up at the end, and it's kind of cool. So like the cool thing was that like I was given like this wide open space because they're like tell stories between like Solo era and like post Jedi, and like in my mind I'm like, well, I've literally been waiting to write Star Wars since I was 11 years old, since I read Timothy Zahn's first book. Nobody do the math, but I did. I read the first book, and I was like, well, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is it. Cut to all these years later, and so it's like they gave me this like wide open, you know, space to like tell these stories in between this era. So I was like, well, I'm never gonna do it again, so I'm just gonna like try to do my greatest hits, assume I'm gonna get laughed out of the room. And the crazy thing is I wasn't laughed out of the room because people were like, I guess people wanted to know what Embo's up to, because that was one of my stories. I'm like, what's Embo been doing? People said, yeah, you can tell that story, or you can put a security droid's body, or a battle droid's head on a security droid's body and see what happens, and like, just like all this crazy weird stuff, like Callus meeting like Solo era Han, and like, so I got to like stitch this story together that goes across like multi, you know, time spans in the Star Wars universe, and then wrap this cool thing up at the end, and it's just a blast. Like Justina's book, I'm almost done with it. I just got it, but it's awesome, and we're just having fun, like tracing. Like it's cool to show like the Falcon bigger than the characters. Like it's changed hands, it's gone to different places, been in different situations. So it's kind of cool to see just the Falcon isolated of like Han or Lando or whoever, and like all the places it's been. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and if you pick up Justina's book and then Lou Hender's book that will come in January, as well as the Choose Your Destiny, you do get an actual map so you can see the flight of the Falcon and where it goes through this kids initiative. So this is a fun little treasure map / checklist for kids, which we kind of dig. I want to move next to Amy. Amy, you've got Women of the Galaxy coming out at the end of this month. First and foremost, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is a massive amount of work that went into this book. Can you tell folks what this is?
Oh my goodness, happily. Women of the Galaxy is kind of a coffee table style book about 75 female characters. And the profiles aren't really meant to be like encyclopedic. They're more celebrations of the characters, some cool things they've done, some memorable quotes, some behind the scenes information. And it was a blast to dive into all of that. But my favorite part of the book is that it's illustrated with over 100 unique illustrations by 18 different female and non-binary artists. And the art, like the book is, now that I've finally seen a copy and held it, one, it's real, like I believe it now, is that it's not just some super elaborate cruel prank. That would be awful. But the art and the design, it's just a stunning book. And I feel like the cover, the worn palette, the foil print, like it just glows in my hands. Like I've opened the Ark and without the face melting in Indiana Jones, and it just, I want to hug it all day.
The art is stunning. We're going to preview a few images in a second, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing because it's both very informative and very entertaining, which is really difficult to pull off. How did you approach that? How did you pull that off?
Man, a lot of tissues and crying, and you know, I love Star Wars, and I read all the books that I can, and I love the behind-the-scenes book and the making of books and all the series. So it was such a treat that to have kind of, okay, I know Nora Wexley did this one cool thing, so I need to go back and find that page and reread it. And I just kind of dove into all of that and did a lot of research and tried to like make notes about the highlights. And it was kind of brought me back to my school days when you make your notes and you try to like present it I had to think way back, so far, and remember how you kind of research like a paper, and I treated it that way, and then threw in lots of like fangirl squeeing, basically,
Sure.
because that's what this book is to me, because these characters are all so special and so different. There are, alcohol experts who know the right kind of wine to get. There are heroes, there are villains, there are mothers, there are just a variety of ladies out there in the galaxy, and they all super inspire me or scare me.
Well, not to put you on the spot, but we have 4 pieces of art that I wanted to share with the crowd that if we can get a little bit of commentary as we go. The first up is Phasma.
Phasma by Little Corvus. Oh, Phasma is, stunning. Like, that costume is meant to be shown in every way possible. And something that you can see in this piece and all of these pieces is the artists really brought their own individual styles to it. So it's these characters as you've either never seen them for some of the book characters, or never seen them, like, as you've never seen them like this.
Next up.
This was one of my Sienna Rhee from Lost Stars by Geneva. Lost Stars is one of my favorite. It's hard to pick favorites when it comes to Star Wars, but I adore that story. I adore that having romance in Star Wars because I love romance stories, and that it's still this big galactic battle. And I think Sienna is just, and something. I'm just gushing. Sorry, I'm super excited. But you can see in these portraits too, like so much of their personality. Like this is a younger Sienna, like just so hopeful and ambitious and proud of where she's in the Empire, and so much of that comes through in the illustrations.
And from here we go to Jyn.
Jyn Erso. Elsa did this, and I love, she does a lot of work on the at Star Wars Adventures, or IDW, so I was thrilled when I found out she was working on this book, and look at Jyn. Just look at her. She is, it's one of her most heroic moments, and that's something we really wanted to capture, like important character beats and poses with the illustrations.
And then last but not least for today, Enfys.
Enfys, by Annie Stoll. Enfys, I fell in love with in Solo. I really want to get the Orabesh on her helmet tattooed because I find her. I want more of her. Whoever can make that happen. Bob Lucasfilm, my personal close friend. And it was great to see her, because she was in the film for a bit, and we've seen her illustrated, but like to see her in this book and like these power poses was, again, tears, heartwarming, all the feels.
Awesome, thank you. We're going to go from here to Are You Scared, Darth Vader? Now, we don't have anyone on here to speak to this book, so I will do it and just say that, a lot of people say the most wonderful time of the year is Christmas. For me, it's Halloween. And to be able to do a picture book for kids that is legitimately funny and still authentic to Star Wars was a great pleasure for us. The great Adam Rex illustrated this. It is good for young kids. It is perfect for Star Wars Reads Month. So we have this out there, and then if you have a slightly older kid but still want to stay in that spooky vibe, we do have Tales from Vader's Castle, because I couldn't not mention our scary Vader books that are coming out weekly from IDW at the moment. But speaking of Vader, I wanted to go over to Mr. Soule toward the end there. Charles, you've been writing Vader for a few years now.
Yes.
Overall, what has that experience been like for you?
I felt incredibly lucky to get to tell a story about Darth Vader in such a kind of an important time in his life. The book is set right after Episode 3, so it's kind of baby Vader when he is first in his suit of armor and he is just having his horrible adventures out in the universe. He's taking his first steps into a larger world of murder and death and pain. So yeah, it's been amazing. The response to the series has been extraordinary. When I took on the gig, I was a little nervous about it because it was right in a time when things were kind of turning a little darker in the world. At least that's how I felt about it. And taking on a book that was so focused on darkness and rage and pain seemed like it might be an experience I didn't know that I wanted to go through emotionally. But it's turned out to be very cathartic. And I think a lot of that has been just sort of the way people have responded to it, and seeing that I'm trying to make his character. I mean, he is an evil space wizard, but there's nuance there, and so that's what I've been trying to put in the book. It's been awesome. We're moving up to, like, you've got the cover to issue 25 there, which is the most metal cover of anything that's ever been. And that, should I just keep talking about what's going on in the book?
Yeah, no, you can talk about what happens.
So we're in Fortress Vader right now. Fortress Vader is the arc that is. That tells the story of how Vader got his castle on Mustafar, that thing we saw in Rogue One. And it builds and builds and builds and builds. It starts with issue 19, which has been out for a little while, with Vader finding one of the last hidden Jedi out there that they kind of confined at that time in the galaxy and slaughtering him, as he likes to do. And then that sets off these dominoes that all build and build and build until the dominoes, this metaphor is falling apart, but the dominoes build into a giant castle on Mustafar. And it has been, I feel like I've been very lucky with this series and Poe Dameron and basically all the Star Wars work I've gotten to do, because I always try to swing for the fences as far as what the stories will do and the beats they'll have and where they'll go. I try to push it as far as I would prefer to be told no about something in a script than not try to push it as far as possible. And I would say the last several issues of Fortress Vader, so it goes to issue 25, and issues 23, 24, and 25 have some of the highest fences I've swung for, I guess. And I just got notes on 25 yesterday, which wraps up the arc, and I was thrilled to see, looking at the gentleman who gave me the notes, that a lot of those fences got swung over. I put it all in the comics, guys. I don't leave much for the panels, I'm afraid. Yeah, ready is for words. But I'm very excited about Vader, where it goes. I cannot wait to start talking to you guys about what happens in it. It's very difficult to know what happens and not have you guys know what happens, but you'll find out soon enough.
And I think we can also say that, unfortunately, as all good things must pass, that Vader 25 is the last issue of this volume. We are going out on an extremely high note with Charles and with Camo on the art. And like I said, this is the end of this volume, and I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us for an incredible run.
My very sincere pleasure.
So issue 25 comes out in December, but we're not going to leave you hanging for for too long, because in case you still need a Vader fix, Mr. Wendig, if you could tell folks what you're going to be working on, that would be swell. And I'll show you a cover or two if you'd like.
Oh. Ooh.
Right?
Who's working on that? Who's doing that? Is
That's
that me?
you. That's you.
Oh,
yeah.
is that my book?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Jeez, wow, who knew? I didn't do that. Would you want me to tell people what it is? And
I think you can absolutely tell people
yeah.
what it is. Sure.
Shadow of Vader.
That's enough.
That's it? Okay, good.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
See, we're done here. Shut it down, everybody. Darth Vader is a character with a long shadow, both literally and figuratively. His legacy is deep and unpleasant. And so we attempt to, through 5 issues, tell that legacy in sort of a fractured way, in that each issue will tackle some character's point of view from how Vader affected them. And it's set across the timelines of Star Wars, so you kind of start prequel era and move all the way up to current sort of resistance area of Star Wars. And so the first issue is kind of a Halloween, Friday the 13th version of Vader, where he's hunting kind of these kids of senators down at what is essentially a summer camp. It's not really a summer camp, but it's kind of a summer camp. Second issue is Willrow Hood, the Star Wars story. For those who know Willrow Hood, I don't need to tell you he's got the ice cream maker, is all we need to know about in Empire Strikes Back. The third issue is about a morgue attendant on the Death Star who begins to find bodies that don't seem dead by a normal hand, and he becomes a little obsessed with that. The fourth issue is about a group I introduced in the Aftermath series called the Acolytes of the Beyond. They're kind of Vader fanboys, and it's about a mother whose son becomes radicalized by them. And the fifth issue is about a pilot who joins from the New Republic to the Resistance, and it's Bloodline era, and it sort of deals with the legacy of this pilot whose parents were killed by Vader, as she discovers that Leia is actually Vader's daughter. So that's Shadow of Vader. What?
Cool. And
it's also about the morality of violence and war.
And as you started writing this one, I know you're a few in already. Same question as to some of the other authors before. Was there anything that surprised you that you learned or frightened you about Vader himself?
Well, I think what surprised me is that we kind of try to look at him in different ways, and so there's different versions of him. Sort of, Star Wars is interesting to me because it's our modern mythology, right? And so in the actual, in the mythology of the past, of civilizations gone by, they have different viewpoints on different gods. They're not a single canonical representation of Poseidon, for instance. There's various versions between Homer and between other tellers of tales. And so this is kind of that, and not that we're trying to tell sort of a divergent canonical tale, but from different people's perspectives, how they view Vader and what they felt personally about Vader and what happened to them from Vader. And it sort of, cast across the time periods of Star Wars, gives it sort of an interesting lens with which to view this theoretically monstrous, but as Charles points out, kind of nuanced in his way. I mean, we do see a character who eventually becomes a redeemed figure inside Star Wars. Sort of. With murder. Redeemed.
So
with more murder.
If you want even more Vader, or specifically if you want to know how to be more Vader, Christian has a book that can help you.
Don't do that.
Who doesn't want to be more like Vader, really?
This is assertive thinking for the dark side. Obviously, it's done with a bit of a wink and a smile. Christian, if you want to tell folks about what this book is and how you approached it and how you got the tone.
Yeah, so this is, it's looking at career advice from the dark side, from all of the saga's dark side characters, not just Vader, but, we've got a little bit in there about how Snoke can teach us, how to, deal with, interns, based on the way that he sets, based on the way he sets, Kylo and Hux against each other. And so, it's funny because there's actually a lot to learn from villains. If you can get rid of all the bad stuff, but just keep the good stuff. Villains are usually smart. They're usually, they have a plan. They're usually very organized. They can be really good managers, when they're not force choking people. But really, it's funny because at one point in my career, there was a series of workshops being offered at the company where I was working at the time. I previously worked at BBC, and they had a class at one point that was just called "Be Assertive," and I kind of feel like that's what this book is in a way. It's like using lessons from Vader and the other dark side characters that you can really positively incorporate into your interactions with colleagues. But with, this is, not the end-all statement by any means. It's very funny. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's, it's meant to be taken with a grain of salt at the same time. But it's fun. I just started a new job this week, actually. So I know a new job and a con in 1 week. It's crazy. So I'm the managing editor of IndieWire now, and so I'm using some of these lessons already.
Did you force choke an intern?
So far, no.
It's still early, though.
Yeah, it's still week 1.
Well, the flip side, obviously, to be more Vader is, of course, be more Yoda. So what was your approach to the Zen-like book?
So this is more looking at mindfulness lessons that all of the saga's heroes can teach us. How to find peace, how to find calm. I mean, we feel so overwhelmed by just the barrage of daily life now. I mean, everything that's hitting us constantly, it's just, in the news or in our jobs or just in our daily lives on social media. It's like you need at times to just find, a safe space, step back and find a bit of calm. And Yoda's very good about that. He did it for almost 20 years, over 20 years on Dagobah. And so, you don't need to actually go to a swamp planet to find this bit of calm. And so again, this is not this is to be taken with a grain of salt. It's tongue-in-cheek. I tried to make it funny, but I really think that if you love something so much like Star Wars, that you can find ways where you can adopt parts of it to make your own life a little bit better.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we're gonna go over a couple covers that I don't think you guys have seen yet. First up is Star Wars Adventures in January. So much like on the Marvel side where we're going through and starting with some prequel stories, we're going to be doing the same thing with IDW. They're going to be telling team-up stories, starting with the prequel characters going through the original trilogy and the new trilogy. And the first one up, yes, is Padme teaming up with Jar Jar. Staying in the prequel zone, our next Choose Your Destiny is an Obi-Wan and Anakin adventure. This is again written by the great Kevin Scott with illustrations by Elsa Charretier again. Can't tell you what this one is about, but it looks like Yoda might be in trouble, so certainly one to check out. Staying with the kids section, we're really excited. We announced the book about a month or so ago with Brian Kessinger, who is a former Disney animator, and it's called Droid Tales, and this is his cover to it. This is very much like, if you guys know the Mo Willems Elephant and Piggy type books, imagine that only by way of Star Wars with R2-D2 and C-3PO and BB-8, and it plays a little bit like Peanuts. It's a little bit like Calvin and Hobbes. It's even a little bit like old silent movies, because you really only have one person here who can speak. So it's a fun story. This is set for next year, and this is the first in a series. So we'll see what else C-3PO doesn't like after that. Staying at the kids' side, we also have a Who's Who character storybook coming out next year. And again, this is a way to introduce kids to the saga. And it's a little bit of a different type of Who's Who. It's character focused first and foremost. So you get introduced to the character, and then you get their story. But again, it's told throughout the saga, starting with 1 and going up through 8. From there, you have Who's Who. We kind of thought, well, there should be like an ABC or maybe like an alphabet book. So coming from Del Rey next year, we have a new novel called Alphabet Squadron. And this is super cool. This is written by Alexander Freed, who unfortunately could not be here today. But what this is the story of 5 former Rebel pilots, right, set after the events of Return of the Jedi, who must band together to go after this really deadly Imperial strike force. And so basically the conceit is what happens when the hunted, being the rebels, now become the hunters going after the Imperials. And we're really excited about this one. You're going to hear a lot more about this in the days and weeks to come, so keep an eye on this one. And then the last cover reveal that we have for today is for Master and Apprentice by Alice Zhang. Yeah, it's a really beautiful book. And Alice's art is also featured in Amy's Women of the Galaxy book, and she's just killing it. And we're super excited about this one. This is written by Claudia Gray and will be out early next year. And that is where we're at now. We've got 1 or 2 minutes left, so I wanted to throw it back to the panel. There was a question that came up in yesterday's panel that I liked a lot that I wanted to throw out to the folks here. For the people in the audience who want to one day be up here on this panel, is there a piece of advice or two that you could give them in terms of writing for their careers that helped you guys, or that helps you even currently with what you guys do?
I'd throw out 2 things. One is just write and finish something, and do something small. You know, we all have big epic things we want to do. You know, we want to write giant movies, we want to write our novels, we want to write a 300-page graphic novel. But when I was coming up, I came through film school and I made 1 million little short films, 2-minute-long short films. You know, do something really small. Like if you're into comics, write a comic strip, write a 4-panel comic that works. And then do another one, and then do another one, and then just, you know, throw them away. I mean, don't literally throw them away. You want to keep all your stuff. It's cool. But, you know, set it aside, learn from it, then do the next thing, and just and do it step by step so that by the time you're ready to tackle your 300-page graphic novel, you've got the experience and the skills to dive into it. And then the second thing I'd throw out there is jump on any opportunity anybody ever gives you to write if they're paying you. You know, like, you know, I came up through film school. But I did everything. You know, I did improv comedy. I did wedding videos. You know, I did comics. I mean, I was drawing strips, and then I eventually got into writing comic books. And now I've written novels. I've written kids' books. Any opportunity you have to tell a story, you're going to learn from. And so being able to work in different media and different genres will help you with whatever you want to do.
If someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would also add, like, if your goal is, like, write, like, a specific property or something, like if you're talking, like, Star Wars, it's, like, just, like, love the thing that you do. Like, I love Star Wars so much that, like, getting to this point was, like, a really long road, and that's, like, typical. Like, that's totally cool. But, like, going through that road and through the, like, you know, the marathon, not a sprint, the endurance that it requires, like, you really have to love it. Because, like, you go through this road, and as long as you're loving it the whole time, you're cool. You know, like, I have, like, a Star Wars, this thing hurt like hell. But, like, but I did it because I love it. Like, I love this so much. So, like, as long as you're loving it, like, you're on the right path. You're doing, you know, follow what Greg said, too. That's really good advice. But, like, as long as you love it, too, like, you are on the right course.
Okay, here's the real advice. First, you're going to need a full moon, okay? And then get a small goat. And no, really, thank you, person laughing very loudly over there. So my advice is to read everything, even the stuff that looks just god-awful and abysmal, because even a bad book has a lesson to learn, right? It's going to teach you something about writing that you might not know before. So, like, don't turn your nose up at anything. Read everything, read widely, and then just, like, believe in yourself, because we all know that power of belief is everything. Yeah.
My theory is, my advice has to do with what the word's called work for hire, which is when you are working for somebody else's intellectual property. A lot of beginning authors have this need to hold on to the precious gem that is their work. And when you write for someone else, you can't do that. And so you can write the best thing in the world in your mind, and they will go, no. I had a scene about Enfys Nest that Lucasfilm's like, no, we don't want to do this right now. It's not even that it was bad. They just didn't want to do it. I went, but, all right, it's your property. It's cool. No problem. You got to let it go. And a lot of people have trouble doing that with their own work, and you got to remember work for hire is different than your own stuff. And if you go in with the mindset that you are giving somebody else work and they have all calls, then you'll be happier.
It's sort of like that old writer's term, kill your darlings. I think it's really important. Like, there may be a joke or a turn of phrase in your writing that you really like, but you have to realize, wait, am I writing that just for myself, or am I writing it for an audience to read? And always think, you're not writing ultimately for you, you're doing it for your audience. And so maybe that turn of phrase wasn't all that great. It's funny, just saying this, like, kill your darlings, that actually sounds like a very kind of like be more Vader kind of phrase. Like, that's something like Kylo Ren, like, let the past die, kill it if you have to. Like, no, just know that, like, if you have, and this is also maybe just because I'm an editor as well by day, but it's like, you just be open to advice, be open to edits, know that where your book ends up could be very different from where it started. And that's a good thing.
My advice would be to don't be afraid to ask questions of people who are in your field and ask for advice, but I think it's most helpful if you kind of show that you're really interested and serious, that you already how do you do this thing? And I've already done this and this, so like, what are my next steps? Comes off as a little more like, oh yeah, I definitely want to help you, as opposed to like, I just read about this blogging thing and I want to do it tomorrow, or you know what I mean? So it's nice to like, definitely ask for help, definitely seek people out. LinkedIn is great for that, I found. And social media too, honestly. And just like do it with intent and being like, yeah, this is something I'm really into and I want to, kind of make it worth somebody's time that you're asking.
I echo all the advice of everybody else in the panel. The other piece of advice that I would say, despite writing being generally something that you do by yourself in your own mind, sitting at a keyboard with a notebook, whatever, the network of people around you, especially as you're coming up, is absolutely crucial. So as you're starting out in any creative endeavor, seek other people who are trying to do it too, because they will be your support network. They will teach you things you don't know. As they rise, they will bring you up with them. They will give you all kinds of help, both sort of craft-wise and emotional and all kinds of things. And so, find other people who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing and try to be friends with them. Being friends can be hard, but
I'm not that bad, Charles.
Yeah, but give it a shot. It really pays dividends, and I think that, even aside from ideas and research and all that stuff, that the other people who are climbing the ladder with you at the same time are some of the most important part of the whole thing.
Talk to them about business, too. Tell them everything. Ask them everything.
I would just add that I would study structure as much as you can. There's actually some people on this panel who have written some delightful books about writing and structure, and then creating a structure for yourself for your own work. Don't wait to ask for permission, and don't wait for inspiration. It's a job, and you just got to put in the hours sometimes, and you just got to allocate the time. But I think structure is the one thing that's the easiest to learn. Because you can look at it and study it as a pattern, and then try to create a structure for yourself for working, because it's a job.
If you're writing if you want to write Star Wars specifically, I mean, part of the thing to sort of realize is, and I can't speak for myself because I'm sort of a chucklehead, but these people are all really talented, accomplished individuals, and they were that way before they got to Star Wars. They're award winners and best-selling authors, and Charles Soule writes all the comics. I mean, I don't think Greg gets to write comics anymore. I think it's always just Charles now. So it's not just about like getting right in there and being like, well, I'm going to start my career and write a Star Wars novel. It's like you're going to build to that. You have to start building that career up and building your repertoire of material. And don't be afraid of that. That means that's a good thing. Building that mountain of your own work is incredible. That's what will get you here too.
Thank you, guys. Well, we are out of time, so I wanted to thank the panelists. I want to thank all of you. We can only do this because of you guys. So thank you. Keep reading. Enjoy the rest of the show, and hopefully we'll see you at Celebration in April. Thanks, everybody.